If you watched part 1 and came back for part 2, I truly appreciate you. I'm David. And before we continue, I need to warn you.
You might think the hardest part of my life was losing my parents or becoming homeless. It wasn't.
What happened next was even more painful. Just when I thought I had finally escaped the life I feared most, everything fell apart again.
I was about to lose everything for the second time. And this time, I wasn't sure I had the strength to start over.
So, if you're ready, let me tell you what happened next. I stood outside the bakery long after everyone had gone home. The lights were off. The windows were empty. The place that had given me hope was gone. For a long time, I couldn't make myself walk away. It felt as if I had lost another family. The little savings I had worked so hard to build disappeared faster
Than I expected. Food, rent, bus fare. Every dollar had a purpose. Within weeks, there was nothing left.
Once again, I was sleeping wherever I could find shelter. The cold concrete became my bed.
The night sky became my ceiling. I remember staring at the stars. I asking myself the same question over and over. How many times can one person start over?
For several days, I stopped believing in tomorrow. I walked through the city with no destination, no plan, no hope. Every business I entered had the same answer. We're not hiring. Every closed door felt heavier than the last. One afternoon, I sat alone beneath the same bridge where I had once slept years earlier. Everything I had fought to build had disappeared again. For a brief moment, I thought about giving up. Not because I was weak, but because I was tired, so incredibly tired. Then a familiar voice echoed inside my mind. Your circumstances are temporary, but the person you choose to become, that's permanent.
I closed my eyes. And for the first time in days, I smiled. The old man had been right.
Life had knocked me down again, but it had never defeated me. I stood up, brushed the dust from my clothes, and made myself one promise. I will never let my circumstances decide my future. The next morning, instead of searching for another ordinary job, I searched for opportunity. I noticed people throwing away broken chairs,
Old tables, damaged shelves. Most people saw trash. I saw possibility.
I borrowed a few simple tools, spent hours repairing each piece. Then I sold them online for a small profit. The first sale earned only $30. The second earned $60. The third earned over $100. It wasn't much, but for the first time, I wasn't working only for today's meal. I was building tomorrow. Every dollar went back into the business.
Soon, one piece of furniture became 5. 5 became 20.
Then I rented a tiny workshop. Months turned into years. I hired my first employee, then another. Customers began recommending us to friends. The business grew far beyond anything I had imagined. People started calling me successful.
They admired the business, the money, the cars, the office. But they never saw the homeless teenager who had once searched through dumpsters for breakfast. Years later, one quiet evening,
I drove back to the very street where my journey had begun. The sidewalk looked smaller than I remembered. Then I saw him, a young homeless boy, sitting alone, holding his knees against the cold. People walked past him. Just as they had once walked past me, I parked my car, walked over,
and sat beside him. Without saying a word, I handed him a warm paper bag.
Inside was a fresh sandwich, an apple, and a hot cup of coffee. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. Then he whispered, "Why are you helping me?" I smiled, because I had waited years to say these words. Your circumstances are temporary, but the person you choose to become, that's permanent. His eyes filled with hope, just as mine once had. In that moment, I realized something.
Becoming a millionaire was never the greatest success of my life. Giving someone hope. Money can change your lifestyle, but kindness can change someone's future forever.
The boy everyone ignored never forgot what it felt like to be invisible. So he made sure no child standing
Where he once stood would ever feel invisible again. I didn't know it yet, but the answer to that question was waiting for me in the most unexpected place.
The following morning, the snow had finally stopped. The streets were quiet. People hurried past, trying to escape the freezing air. I had nowhere to be, so I simply kept walking.
Hour after hour, block after block, until something caught my attention. Beside a large dumpster
lay an old wooden chair. One of its legs was broken, its paint was peeling.
Most people didn't even look at it. They walked right past, as if it had no value.
I almost did the same. Then I stopped. For some reason, I couldn't take my eyes off it. I walked closer, picked it up, turned it over in my hands. The frame was still strong. Only one leg needed replacing. That's when a strange thought entered my mind.
If someone built this once, maybe someone can rebuild it. I wasn't thinking about starting a business. I wasn't thinking about making money.
I was only thinking about surviving one more week. But sometimes,
The smallest ideas.
become the biggest turning points in our lives.
I carried that broken chair with me, not realizing it was the first step toward a future I had never dared to imagine.
I dragged the chair back beneath the bridge. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I spent the rest of the day studying it, running my fingers across the cracked wood, looking for a way to fix it. The next morning, I visited a small hardware store. I didn't have enough money to buy everything I needed.
So I asked the owner if he had any leftover wood scraps. He looked at me for a moment, then pointed toward a pile behind the store. Take whatever you can use.
And I thanked him, picked up the scraps, and spent the entire afternoon working on that broken chair. My hands were covered in splinters. The cold made my fingers stiff. More than once, I wanted to give up. But every mistake taught me something.
Late that evening, I stepped back and looked at it. It wasn't perfect, but it was standing again.
The small corner beneath the bridge slowly became my workshop. It wasn't beautiful, it wasn't big, but every piece of wood
Inside that space carried a story of second chances. People who once walked past me without looking started stopping to see what I was creating. Some brought broken furniture, some brought old memories they wanted repaired. And every time I fixed something, I felt like I was fixing a small piece of myself too. One evening, a businessman wearing an expensive coat stopped near my workshop. He looked at the wooden table I had restored. He touched the surface and said,
Where did you learn this skill? I smiled. I didn't, I answered. I just learned how to rebuild things that others gave up on. He looked at me quietly. Then he said something I would never forget. Sometimes the most valuable things are by people who know what it means to be broken. Those words stayed with me, because for years I thought my past was something I had to hide. But maybe my struggles were the reason I could see value where others saw nothing. And that realization changed everything. I stopped chasing money and started chasing excellence. Every piece of furniture that left my workshop carried my name and my promise.
if it wasn't good enough for my own home, it wasn't good enough to sell. Word began to spread. One customer became 5, 5 became 50.
People no longer came because I was cheap. They came because they trusted me. A year later, I rent my frill workshop.
The bridge that had once been my home was now only a place I passed on my way to work.
I never forgot it. Every morning, I looked at it for just a few seconds to remind myself where I had started.
Years passed. My little workshop became a successful furniture company.
We hired craftsmen who needed a second chance, men who had lost their jobs, young people with nowhere else to go, people that the world had given up on.
Just like it had once given up on me. One afternoon, a business magazine asked to interview me. The reporter smiled and asked, if you could erase the hardest years of your life, would you?
I looked out the window for a long moment. Then I answered, no. She looked surprised. I continued, if those years had never happened, I would have never become the person I am today. Pain didn't destroy me. It introduced me to my purpose. A few months later, the magazine placed my story on its front cover. The headline read, "From homeless to millionaire." People saw the success. They saw the company. They saw the money. But they didn't see the freezing nights, the empty stomach, the broken chair beneath the bridge.
Or the moment one stranger said, take whatever you can use. Sometimes one small act of kindness changes the rest of someone's life. Today, when I walk past someone everyone else ignores, I stop. Because I know exactly how it feels to be invisible. And if there's one thing
My journey taught me, it's this. Never judge someone by where they are today. You have no idea who they might become tomorrow. If my story reminded you that hope can survive even the darkest days, please like this video and subscribe to the channel.
and share it with someone who needs to believe that a new beginning is always possible. Because sometimes the greatest success stories start in the places the world refuses to look.